Hi, my name is Sarah and my channel is Knotty Gnome Crafts. Welcome! If you're a new or returning viewer, thanks so much for joining me. Today's video is going to be another edition of Friday Sews. If you are unfamiliar, the hashtag Friday Sews was started by Today in Jen's Sewing Room, and I always link her channel down in the description box for my Friday Sews videos. And it's just a hashtag where people in the sewing community talk about the things that they've been working on, what they're going to work on next, and a little bit about life. So before we get started, today I am wearing my Sew Over It Heather dress out of a gray bamboo cotton French terry that I got from Blackbird Fabrics. And I'm actually wearing a ready-to-wear cardigan over top. This is one that I bought from Nordstrom a few years ago. It actually reminds me of fun fur. I started knitting around 2003-ish, and like fun fur was all the rage at that time. So I'm actually like slightly embarrassed that I still have and like this cardigan, but because it does remind me of fun fur. But it's very soft and warm and cozy, and so I do like it, so I'm wearing it today because it's keeping me warm. So in today's video, I have a couple of finished things to talk about. I'm going to share with you what I'm going to work on next, and then at the end I'll have just a little bit of knitting and cross stitch to share with you. So for as far as what I finished this week, I did manage to finish the sports bra that I had been working on last week. And I don't have it here to show you because I actually wore it and it's now in the wash, but I do have some clips and photos that I will be inserting as I'm talking. So to give you my review of this pattern, I made the Your Happy Liz Bralette for the first time. And let me just read off the pattern description. The description says that Liz is a simple and versatile bralette designed to provide a solid basis for a fully lined pull-on soft bra, sports bra, or bikini top. It features deep squared neckline and fitted wide straps. View A has a characteristic overlap on both sides. View B includes classic side seam. And the size range says that it accommodates a high bust measurement of 28 up to 54 inches. So for my sports bra, I used some scraps of fabric that were in my stash, and I somewhat recently made bike shorts out of them. And so one of them was a performance knit that I had bought from Joann's several years ago, probably in 2018. And then the other piece of fabric that I used was from Style Maker Fabrics. It was one of their activewear, like dead stock fabrics. And I don't remember the fabric content or anything, but these were just scraps that I had left over, and it was enough to cut out the bra. So for my sizing, I actually chose to do a little bit of grading. So my upper bust measures 31 inches and my full bust measures 32 inches. So on their sizing chart, my upper bust was actually in between sizes 2 and 3. So what I decided to do was I actually made like a 2.5. Like I chose the dividing line between those two sizes of 2 and 3 at the upper bust part only, and then everywhere else I cut a size 2. So it just gave me a little bit of extra space, like right under the arms. So the construction of this went really well. I think I mentioned this last week, but I didn't have enough of the Style Maker scraps to do the full lining, so I had to add a center back seam to it. But that worked out fine. I don't really notice that like nothing like pokes up at me or anything. It worked out just fine. For the sewing, I used, in my looper threads, both loopers, I used woolly nylon thread. And then in the needles, I used regular Maxi Lock serger thread. And I've done this before when I was sewing activewear, and I just find that it makes it very, very stretchy and the seams don't pop. And for any of the basting that I had to do, I used the lightning stitch on my regular sewing machine, and that also worked perfectly fine. For this pattern, you do need clear elastic, and I had some clear elastic on hand, but I ended up having to order some more from Wawak. But I did that, and it came in, and I was able to finish the bra successfully. Now, as far as modifications that I made, I did go ahead and insert elastic into the bottom band because I wanted to actually use this as a sports bra. I wasn't super confident that it was going to be supportive enough if I just used a fabric band. So I did go ahead and I inserted 1.5 inch wide elastic underneath the bust. I inserted it in the band, And that worked really well. I've actually have used this bra to work out in, and it seems like it offers me plenty of support. So I was happy with that solution, and I would do that again next time if I were using this as a sports bra. If I just wanted to make the bralette version, I probably would skip it, but for the sports bra, I think that was a good idea. So as far as changes that I would make next time, so when I actually wore the bra, the instructions do tell you to understitch the neckline so that the lining doesn't poke out, but you can't understitch the armholes because you put it together with the burrito method, or at least the method that I chose used the burrito method. So I was not able to understitch the armholes, and even the neckline, the lining fabric does poke out a little bit when I wear it, and you can see it. Because it's the sports bra, it really doesn't bother me, but I suppose if I really wanted to be picky about it next time, I could cover stitch around the neckline and the armholes just to keep the lining fabric from shifting. But like I said, it doesn't really bother me that much. I don't even know if I care enough to do it next time, but like if it bothered you, you could finish off and top stitch the neckline and the armholes just to keep everything in place. Because my experience was that it did poke out a little bit and you can see it. So would I sew this again? I actually would sew this again. In fact, when I finished my first one, I tried it on and it seemed to fit and everything, and I immediately wanted to make another one because I do want to try the view with the crisscross, the view A, the crisscross sides, but I decided to wait, following along with my goals for 2022, which is to have more intention in my sewing. I wanted to slow down and just test out the first version that I made, actually work out in it a few times, make sure that there's nothing that I want to adjust, because like you never know, like you do a workout, maybe I'll decide that, you know, the elastic in the band needs to be looser or tighter, or maybe I need to shorten the straps, and it's just sort of like, I'm not really gonna know those things until I actually use it. And so I made myself wait. And so now that I have used it, I do think I will go ahead and make another version at some point. I don't plan to do it immediately, but hopefully relatively soon I'll make another one. But I do think that it was an intelligent decision to slow down and just start with the first one, make sure that it works for me before I just rushed in and made a second one. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with how that turned out. I think that the fit seems pretty good. The strap length seems good for me. Hopefully I will have inserted clips and pictures so that you can see what it looks like on. And yeah, I'm really satisfied that I have made myself a sports bra, and it does appear to be functional, and I can cross that one off of my Make 9 2022 list. And if you missed that video, I will go ahead and link it up in the cards so you can check that out. So I do have another finished project to share with you. I actually just finished it this morning. I had not originally put this in my plans for 2022, but after watching everybody else's videos, there were a couple of people that just had a really wonderful idea. So if you guys are not familiar with her, I'm sure you probably are, but Maddie of Maddie Sews hosts a challenge in September called the Project Dress a Girl, and everybody makes dresses for this charity called Project Dress a Girl Around the World, I think is the charity name. And then she donated a ton of dresses this past year, and she's going to do the challenge again this year. And I will link her channel down in the description box below so you can go check out and learn all about that. So she had already mentioned in her plans that she's going to do it again this year. And then I saw a couple of other YouTubers, I think Michelle from Michelle Sews Again and Carmen of Carmen Salome had mentioned that they were going to be making one dress a month leading up to September so that they would have a stash of dresses to be able to donate when the challenge comes along, and you're not just trying to do it all in 1 month. And I just thought that that was an amazing idea, so I'm going to do it too. So I also sewed up my very first Project Dress a Girl dress for 2022. Now, unfortunately, I used a free pattern, and I do not recommend this pattern, so I'm actually not even going to tell you what it is. Like, I just don't want to mislead anybody to the wrong place. So like, I'll get into the details of why I don't think it's a good pattern. But I used a free pattern, and I used some scraps. This is some cotton, I think it's cotton spandex interlock that was left over from a t-shirt that I made for my niece for her birthday last year. And then I also, for the pockets, just used a little bit of quilting cotton that was in my stash. And this is a size 3 girl's dress. It's just a very simple t-shirt dress. and then I added the pockets to the front. And I chose woven because I figured that the knit pockets would probably stretch out and not be very functional. So I chose to just stitch on some woven pockets. And yeah, this went together. I mean, it's a t-shirt, so it's very simple. Like, I already know how to construct a t-shirt. The reason that I don't recommend this pattern that I chose is because I don't think it was drafted very well. Like, the pieces did not line up, and I think it's one of those things where they didn't account for seam allowance, so the pieces didn't line up. I had to do a lot of trimming to get everything to line up on my serger. So because of that, like, my stripe placement isn't perfect or anything, but I think it still turned out to be a functional t-shirt dress. Please let me know in the comments if you know of a good t-shirt dress pattern for girls, because I do actually really like the idea of making these knit dresses for the charity, because number one, I have a ton of knit scraps, so it could just be really handy and useful for me. And also, I just think that as far as functionality and wearability, I just feel like a t-shirt dress is just something that could work anywhere, wherever you are in the world, and just be very comfortable and functional. So I like the idea of doing knit dresses, although I probably will also make some woven dresses. So let me know in the comments, please, if you know of any good girls t-shirt dress patterns. I do actually have some girls t-shirt patterns that I was thinking about trying to lengthen into a dress. My only thing with that is that I don't have children, and so I don't have a good frame of reference for like how long it would need to be or how wide it would need to be at the bottom. But I suppose I could actually use this pattern as a guide in order to just figure out like approximate length and width at the bottom hem. So I might do that if I don't get any other suggestions. But yeah, just let me know. So yeah, just very simple to construct. I did use my cover stitch for the hems and the neckband. And I do think that even though they don't match perfectly, I think that these two fabrics together are just super cute. So yeah, that was my January project dress of girl charity dress that I made this month. And I'm hoping to make one every month. So moving on to what I am working on this week. So I have actually put in quite a bit of work this week on my pants muslin. I think I've mentioned this, but I'm taking a class from Fabric Mart from Jen Stern of Jen Stern Designs on pants fitting. So I had my first Zoom class last Sunday, and we're going to have another one this Sunday, and I'm also supposed to have a one-on-one session on Saturday. So I don't want to get into the details while I'm in the middle of the class, but I will talk about it in some detail after the class has ended. But I have been putting in quite a bit of work on that this week. And then moving on to what I'm going to work on next week, I was thinking about it. It's been very, very cold and snowy. On Monday, we got like record snow. I think we got like 11.5 inches of snow in one day. And it's just been bitterly cold. This winter, I will say until January that the winter was quite mild, and now it's just horrible. But the winter's been horrible in the past few weeks. And so I've been thinking about, I really would like some more cozy layering pieces for my wardrobe. So I think next week I'm going to try to make the Pattern Emporium, what's it called? With Love poncho. And I got out this rayon cotton modal sweater knit that I got from D&H Fabrics in their Black Friday sale. The colorway is called Rust, and it is kind of a classic sweater knit. It's pretty light and it's very drapey, and I think it would actually be really nice for the poncho. I think I'm going to make the version that has the cowl neck, and I'm gonna leave off the pockets because I'm not sure where the length is gonna be on me, so I kind of want to just make my first version very plain and see how I feel about it. And then if I like it and I want to make more in the future, then I can add more bells and whistles at that point. But this first version is just going to be very simple and plain. And I only have 2 yards of this, so I'm thinking I'm going to have to do the short version, although I kind of like the look of the high-low version, but I do think that takes more than 2 yards of fabric. So like I said, this first time around, I'm probably just going to keep it as simple as possible, and make it without any bells and whistles, and then see how I like it. But that is in the plans for next week. Now I'm going to move into my other crafts, and so if you were only here for the sewing, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. But if you want to hear a little bit about my knitting projects, or project, that I'm just going to share one of them this week, I finished my first mitten for my husband, his lined mitten. So the first one's completely done, and it probably doesn't look that impressive until you turn it inside out and you realize that it's fully lined. So I really like the way that it turned out. I had him try it on, And he said that the thumb is slightly too long, but I was like, I can't do anything about that now. And he's like, that's fine. So otherwise it fits him really well. And so the yarn that I decided to go with for the interior, for the lining, is this 2-ply merino cashmere nylon yarn that I dyed with natural dyes several years ago. And it's in this really beautiful color. I almost kind of regret using this for his lining because I really do like the color, but it's fine. And I chose this particular color because I don't know if you're gonna be able to tell or not, but there are, in this hand-dyed self-striping yarn, there are little tiny flecks of like rusty red in there. And I just thought that it kind of picked up that color. And also it doesn't really matter because it's on the inside, you won't see it. So in order to do the lining, I picked up stitches at the cast on and then just knit another mitten and then stuffed it inside when I was done. I did realize after the fact that it would have been easier to have started with a provisional cast on, but that's neither here nor there, too late for that. And I did have to change the order of the construction just a little bit in order to facilitate weaving in of the ends. And so I'll get out the one that I'm working on now. Hopefully I can explain this to you. So I did the cuff and then I did this part here and then I did the gusset increases. And then when you divide for the thumb, I went ahead and stopped and woven this cast on end where I started, just so that it'd be woven in and I wouldn't have to worry about it being in the way. Then I knit the hand portion up to where the decreases start here at the top. And I stopped there. And then I went back and reattached the yarn and did the thumb so that I could finish that and close it up and then weave in the ends up at the top here and then the end right here and close up any holes that are at this little thumb joint. This is all in the lining. All of the outer mitten ends are already woven in. But you have to do that because if I waited to weave in the ends for the thumb until I finished these decreases up here, there would not be enough space. Like you can't get in there to get down here to weave in the ends. So you need to leave yourself a bigger hole to deal with these ends before you try to finish the mitten. I hope that makes sense. And then when you actually like do the decreases on the lining and close up the top here, you can't weave in this end. You have to just shove it down the inside. I did it with a yarn needle and then kind of pulled it out kind of far down like out the side. And you just have to leave that because there's no access. You can't get in there to weave in the end. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I had to alter the order of construction a little bit, but otherwise the inner mitten is the same as the outer mitten, except that I went down in needle size. So for this cuff ribbing, I used size 0 or 2 millimeter needles. And then for the main body of the lining mitten, I used size 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter needles. And the outside mitten uses size 2, which I think is 2.75 millimeter needles. And I did also use the 1.5 on this outer cuff. So yeah, so I finished one mitten. I'm working on the other one. I'm doing this as fast as I can. I feel slightly guilty because it has been so cold and snowy. And the day that we had the snowstorm, my husband takes care of our property and then he is a landlord, so he has some of his own properties. And he also does some kind of property management stuff for other landlords that he knows. So he was basically snow blowing out in a snowstorm like all day long. And I felt so bad that like he had to do all that and he didn't have his cozy lined mittens. That I'm like trying to knit these as fast as I can, but I also have some issues with my hands, so I can't sit there and knit all day. Like my hands would swell up and I wouldn't be able to close them. So, or my fingers would swell up and then I wouldn't be able to close them. But yeah, like I really hope that in another week, these will be finished and I can give them to him. And I might even go ahead and like give them to him early. Like normally I would hold on to these until I could wash them, photograph them, you know, show them on this video and then like give them to him. But I might go ahead when I finish these and just give them to him and worry about that stuff later. So that is the knitting that I've been working on. I have also been working on my blanket, but like I said, I probably will only show that like once a month. I have been also working on my spinning, but I'm not going to show that right now. But the final thing I am going to show you is just some progress on my cross stitch project. So I've been working on the Play-Doh Squirrel Kawaii ABC sampler. And I talked about this in another video, I'll link that up in the cards. But this pattern, as far as I know, is no longer available. But I was going to show you my progress, but I forgot I'd moved this. So I basically like filled up an entire square here of what I had space for, and then I actually just shifted it over so that I can have room to do more over here. So you can't really see the whole thing, but I have been making steady progress on this, and I am still finding it very fun and relaxing. And still, my only gripe or complaint about this is that it uses so many different colors. Most of the colors are not repeated, but a few of them are. And in my opinion, some of the colors are just very, very similar in hue. I feel like you could have gotten away with fewer colors. Like for an example, I'm pretty sure that this color and this color are technically different colors, but they look like the same color. And it's like, why did we have to get a different color for each of these? But anyway, that's just my little gripe. And if I had been thinking about it, maybe I could have gone through and simplified it myself. But I didn't, and so I'm living with it. But yeah, like there's just tons and tons and tons of colors in this, and that's the only part that I'm not enjoying. But otherwise, I do find it very relaxing. I do like to just sit down, you know, in the afternoon or the evening and just do one motif. And yeah, so that's my cross stitch project for this week. So that's all that I have for you today. Hopefully the editing won't be too choppy. I'm gonna have to cut out a bunch of my dogs barking. I swear, every time I sit down to film a video, my dogs decide it's time to freak out and just start barking randomly. Although to be fair, they really do that all the time. It's not just when I film videos, but it is very annoying. But yeah, so anyway, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate that you take time out of your day to watch my videos. If you enjoyed this, I hope that you will hit the like button because it helps others discover my channel. And if you haven't already, I hope that you will consider subscribing. I'll see you again next time.